We're streaming on here. Oh, let me go
Would
live
we be
again on
able
there.
to have, if everyone agrees to it, John,
Okay,
this
there we
for
go.
the council meeting
Yeah,
then?
yes, absolutely.
So we can put it
It's so
effective
temperamental.
April?
What is that?
About the
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah, they
pricing.
just
made a lot of those changes already.
Even if we put on for first reading or something, those are all the changes that Mary and Brian made and
Right.
stuff, so we'll talk, yeah. It just didn't get, they were still working on a little bit. so
Last
John-
week.
Well, I wasn't sure exactly what you guys want. I mean,
Well,
I
and-
think I am, so I just want to be clear before I make the final edit.
Exactly.
I'll get it done tomorrow. Right, tomorrow.
So are we able to change this, John, that just as noted by council? I mean, will it just be like a generic thing that,
We have to vote on it though, right?
Annually.
That's what, we still have to vote on it.
right,
Yeah.
but like annually we would review the
To be,
clauses?
yeah, to be reviewed
They have the
annually.
sample contracts. I was just leaving them blank. And then you guys, it's just a sample, and you guys can tell them what the fees would be
Okay,
when they come in. That way you don't have to make a big to do everything.
Sure.
And you can just do it in a committee meeting or whatever. The mayor could just do it actually through administration. If you wanted to raise the fees with your blessings.
Who we missing?
well, I want to thank you
Oh,
for going
Brian.
through all of that, because again, I just wanted it
Yeah,
to be
absolutely.
completely, open to everybody so they understood
got
and
it.
could see
5:30.
with what's going on. I know it was a pain in the butt. I
No,
know
it's
it was reviewing some of the same information, that we
We went
went
through it so quick, it doesn't matter. We went through it quick last time, so it's fine. I mean, and that's a big shocker for people. I mean, it was a shocker for me. It was like, I was gonna bring it in the one meeting, and I was like, wait a minute, what the hell's going on? And then I'm like, and I'm looking, and I'm like, oh, you're idiots. But okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And when I started hashing it out and thinking about the timing, I'm like, it does make sense.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately. But again, the thing is, with a government budget, that's 1 year. That doesn't mean you're gonna end up in one the next year. It doesn't
Right.
mean, oh, we have this huge hole to crawl out of. It means, okay, slate's clean, start over.
Right.
I mean, if our fund balance
Is
dipped for some
everybody
reason, I'd be
coming?
worried,
All
but
right, let's get this,
yes.
get rolling here. Yep, let's go. We waiting for Brian. Go to the restroom. Okay.
Are they recording for us down there? Did we, police? If not, no biggie.
They said she was on chapter.
Oh, okay.
She's a CPA.
Hey, my daughter's auditor, just hire her.
There you go.
You want to close that door,
There
Brian?
might be a
I
little
think we're ready.
conflict in there.
There might be a little nepotism going on, but
But she's auditing the water department.
Councilman might get a little raise down there.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Committee of the Whole meeting for the Village of Walton Hills, Tuesday, March 8th, 2022, at, what do we
I
have?
got 7:33 on the computer.
7:33 PM. Apologize to the residents for running a little late, but I think it was very important. We had a very constructive finance meeting. So I think that was, running over was very acceptable, and I apologize if people were waiting for the 7 o'clock, but that was a very good meeting. So, first order of business is roll call.
Councilman Nielsen?
Here.
Councilwoman Brenner Miller?
Here.
Councilwoman Allen?
Here.
Councilman Spitznagel?
Here.
Councilman Whedon?
Present.
All of council present, along with our fiscal officer, Angela Reve, and our law solicitor, John Montello. Okay. Any comments from council related to the agenda items? Any comments from residents that are here or residents that are watching the live stream?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mary.
the ordinance 2022-1, the police body worn cameras, I would like to introduce that next week. Oh,
No.
Sorry. No.
Mayor Colgrave.
Kind of jumping the gun for him, but that's,
Yeah,
sounds
sorry,
like a
I
winner.
just
That's
thought you were
okay. Go
talking
ahead.
about the agenda.
Mr. Whedon.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up, Councilwoman Mary Brenner Miller. No, I was going to introduce 2022-5. And just a quick comment, Mayor, if, once like in a COW, like either whether last week or this week, once it's already been identified who the council person is, could we just have that already just printed on?
Sure, yeah.
So when it comes to when we come to vote, it's already there and you guys don't have to go back and write it in afterwards. It's already, if we know in advance who's going to introduce it,
Yes, I can do that.
Right.
type it in.
Because
and
I
then
do sometimes forget to write it in after we sign
Saves us
it.
a few
No,
seconds.
no problem.
Right.
No one was ever so excited to introduce legislation in my almost
Mayor,
18 years, which is a good thing. No, I mean, it's a nice thing.
Yeah, I think that's just part of.
It's efficient.
It's just part of COW. I mean, once,
It is efficient.
Right.
or if you have multiple readings, once you go through that mechanism
Absolutely.
and you've identified that just makes it
Right.
a little more efficient down the road.
And I think it's, Mr. Whedon, I think part of it is, which is nice, you're chairman of the committee and you feel things, same thing with Mary, and you've worked on the item. So I get it. I just put a little humor into it too. That's all.
Okay.
But I agree, and, because I know there's things that I've liked, all of us here would have liked to introduce, but maybe someone else asked first and you yielded to them, so nothing wrong with that. Okay, item 4 is legislation. Last COW meeting, last week, we talked about Resolution 2022-5, the tracks construction Tulip Lane, water main replacement. I read into the record Mr. Gelati's recommendation, which was for the tracks construction. It was the lower of the bids. We do have it in here for, the legislation is here. We went over it. I'd like to ask for it, we put it on the council meeting and ask for suspension. If everybody's okay with that.
Yes.
I do have something else I want to add to that, though. I know we had a question from one of the residents. Let me grab it here.
For tracks.
No, I got another letter from Mr. Gelati today.
Oh, okay.
Because we had a resident ask about the time
timeline.
frame and stuff, so I did get those questions answered. I just want to read it in the record. I have everything with my little paper clips on it. See where I
See
have-
if you have it clipped to your COW.
Yeah, there we go. One of the questions from a resident was about, will they give notice? I think Mr. Whedon had a question about when we're going to start. So talking to Joe about the project, of course, we got to pass the legislation to award the contract to tracks, but he sent me an email and just said, Mayor, once the contract is awarded to tracks construction, we will request a written work schedule from tracks. Once verified, the start date and duration will be distributed to all parties. During construction, homes along or near Tulip Lane may temporarily lose water service. Tracks Construction and our Cleveland Water Department will provide advance warning of such loss of service in the form of a letter drop or door hanger. We will also, talking to Rob and like we have with Dunham, we will also distribute something or make sure everybody's aware, whether it's a phone call or whatever. So we will make sure. We did a very good job with the Dunham Road project between the water department, the construction department, and our service department. That project went really, really well. The only thing that was bad in the beginning was when they had a couple water main breaks in Maple Heights, and some of our residents didn't have water for a few days. That was beyond our control. But as far as when there were scheduled shut-offs and when they were going to make those repairs, it was communicated very well, and we will follow that same procedure. So that's where we're at right now. We'll pass the legislation next Tuesday, then they'll be awarded the contract. Then our engineer will sit down and they'll get a work schedule, and then I'll share it with, everybody in the committee. So, okay? I know that was a question asked, and I just wanted to be able to answer that. Okay, any questions on Resolution 2022-5 for the Tulip Lane water main replacement? Okay, so then I'm going to have it on there for suspension. Okay. Then we have item B. Before I move, any questions from residents
Nothing
or
on the
anybody live streaming?
Nothing on the live stream yet.
Okay. We have item B, which is ordinance 2022-1, the police body worn cameras. I know last COW meeting, we had Chief Stan Jaworski along with Sergeant Mike Gervasi go over the program with us. They did a very good job, pretty extensive. We were awarded that grant. Unfortunately, the grant was a little less than what we need to spend. So Angela talked about that. We have legislation reflects that.
I have to give you an update. Do the
Yeah,
update.
you can give the update on it. Go ahead.
So I've got a bit of an update, and legislation, after you mull this over, could look a little different next week, and Mike is willing to come again. I ran into him Saturday when I was in here, actually. I've got to learn to walk quieter, because they can hear me downstairs when I walk, apparently, so he ran up. A portion of the quote had something in it about Wi-Fi, and we don't have that type of camera. So that was going to take a portion of the cost away that we would, owe. However, Motorola said, but you are using older cameras with new technology. So in Sergeant Gervasi fashion, they gave him another option of if you got the cameras replaced and updated those to be new as well, then that takes what we just took away plus add a little bit. So we, instead of looking at 45,000, and Sergeant Gervasi will send something to me so you can have a preview of this before we would draft and talk about this. I thought he was gonna send it prior to this meeting. So basically, we got the quote from 57 originally down to 45 when we realized we had the grant. So our out-of-pocket would be 14,488. I believe once we take the Wi-Fi piece out, that takes us down to 39, but putting the cameras back in might take us back closer to 50. Don't quote me on that. It's pretty close to that amount. So if you are willing to add that a little bit extra to have the newer cameras would be the thing. So I will have him give me the specifics, and send them out to you, and then we can have him at the meeting as well, or have any questions for him ahead of time, of course, just in case we would think that that's a good idea, or we want to stick with it like it is. If we stick with it like it is, it's going to be obviously a little bit cheaper because that Wi-Fi piece doesn't pertain to us. It was something to do with a type of camera that we don't have. So, so that would take it down to 39,000 before the grant. So I will get more detail from him so that I can give you, we can have a better explanation of exactly what we'll swap out.
Angela, when you talked to Sergeant Gervasi, would you find out what the life expectancy of those new
Yes.
cameras would be then?
Yes, thank you.
And also what the expectancy to get out of the current cameras?
Okay.
Mayor Colgrove?
Yes.
Yeah, just a quick question. So I'm not quite clear. So the cameras that we're talking about would be different than the ones they talked about last week because.
Right now, it's
does
still
this
our
have-
cameras.
Does this have anything to do with the loading piece where they drive in?
It's not even, I don't think, to do with the loading piece. The Wi-Fi portion would have to do with the loading, right? So that's something we don't typically do now with our cameras. And so
Right.
when Teresa went back through it again, he said, oh, yeah, we don't even have that. So that takes a piece away, making the price less, because we don't need that part of the server, if you will, or that,
So what are we doing with cameras?
So what
Yeah.
Motorola came back to say was, well, while we're here and we're toggling around the price and you just saved some money, you're going to be pairing this new technology, because don't forget, these were our same cameras we were going to be using with the new server. We'd be pairing new technology with the older cameras, so they were giving him a quote on what if we just give you all brand new cameras too, to go with this new server.
Okay, because I thought there was new cameras in
They're not new cameras.
in the old proposal.
No, those are not new cameras. That's the new server and new peripherals to go with it.
Yeah,
The cameras themselves were going to be the same. Yeah.
So this is really not a body.
We originally
camera.
were going to purchase some extra new cameras, but that's what came out of the quote when we realized the grant was less. Those would have been additional to have on hand. So this would be just replacing the same batch we already have, not adding any extra to that. But just bringing the cameras, a little more up to date to go along with the new server we're gonna have to go with it. So yeah, So where we saved, his approach to me was, I have good news and bad news. So the approach was that we would save money on that Wi-Fi piece coming out, but if it's feasible, we could get the newer cameras and just add a little bit more back onto that.
And that is how it's worded in the legislation.
What about new cameras?
It's the server and the
Yeah, the
and
server.
software and the components for the cameras. What I'll do is, we'll have Mike, let me see if I can get Mike to come here, or the chief, and explain it.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah, and that way, and we'll have it all, he's waiting for, like Angela said, that final quote, I guess, or piece to put all the numbers together, exactly what we need. And let me ask you this.
And I don't know if there's any kind of trade-in or anything. We didn't discuss that. Like the current cameras, do those just go obsolete? Can we use them extra in addition to? Like, are they still going to be usable? You know, so would those be our
As
new extra
backups?
cams? Right, exactly. So that officers, you know, we have like one for every officer. You know, that could be the case. I didn't ask him about that.
Yeah, Mayor Colgraf.
Yes.
I didn't bring my notes from last week, but I think Officer Jerry, the officer mentioned those cameras were like 7 years old already or something like
I think
that.
they are, something
Yeah.
like that.
Mr. Mayor?
But, no, you're good, but I remember when he asked about the quality, he said the quality would still be good as far as the pixels and stuff using those cameras. Remember there, he said that wasn't an issue there.
Yeah.
He said those are high def cameras.
Yeah, remember? Because he
Yeah.
talked about the high def and how it uses more space when they
Right.
they don't always use the high def depending on the situation.
I didn't ask for any specs on what these newer cameras would be either.
Yeah,
so-
they're high def.
Again, I thought that he was gonna get me something a little bit prior to here as a starting point, but I will get that from him.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Mary.
Well, if he gets this together prior to the meeting, send it out, just
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
we can review it prior
Right.
to getting in here, then he can explain it more.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, because we'll want to draft the legislation accordingly
Right,
if we're gonna have any more
exactly.
out of pocket.
We're gonna
Yeah, I'll have
do,
we want everybody to be comfortable. It's an important, probably it's one of the most important tools our
Yes.
police have, so we want to get it right.
Because we can always add a COW if we need
You
to.
know, yeah, I can always add a special meeting, which might happen anyways if there's some development moving, along with the redevelopment
okay,
of the corner, so. So we want everybody to be comfortable.
okay.
We all need to understand, especially since they're proposing something a little different, we should get the details on it.
Yeah,
So we'll have Mike or.
you'll have Mike. Stan's probably like, what did he do?
Yeah. Mike likes, Mike that's his wheelhouse there. Anything else related to the ordinance 2022-1? Any comments from any residents or any residents that are streaming?
Nothing on the street.
Non-residents? Okay. Item 5 is discussion on ordinance 678.10, which is fireworks. As we talked about that, and we had a resident bring it to our attention too, and with the governor passing the legalization of fireworks in the state of Ohio and how they're used, we thought we'd start talking about it, see what we need to do. Mr. Montello's looking into it. Last Friday, met with 11 mayors from different communities, and this is one of the subjects we talked about. Most of the mayors are where we're at. They're starting to look at it. There is a few mayors that already did pass legislation not allowing them. Those are a couple who've had some serious injuries with fireworks in the past years. They're not allowing them. The consensus from most of the mayors was they're keeping their ordinance in place, at least for the first year. They feel the same way we do, or at least I do, and what we talked about, and this is why we're here now, we can talk about it, that not everybody's going to be good stewards of it. Some people might take advantage of that. Here, I'll put it back here. I didn't mean to put it
I don't know if it was yours.
And like to have something on the books to control the fireworks. So I don't know how council feels about that. I did print off the existing ordinance we have. Mr. Montello passed out something from the OML now, so I know we all have to take a look at it, but I thought it's just a starting point here tonight, just to start thinking about what direction we want to go. John, do we have to, one of the questions, and that's the same question that a lot of the mayors had, do we have to, can we just leave our existing ordinance in place, or since the governor passed that, do we have to do something, modify it, or pass a new ordinance? Do you
My
know?
reading is, this law trumps our ordinance. Our ordinance is no longer constitutional. They took away our home rule, although they did reserve us the right to pare it down. That we could, right now, if they permit it for New Year's Day, Chinese New Year, Cinco de Mayo, Memorial Day, we cannot prosecute someone for violating under our ordinances. So we would have to reaffirm that we're rebanning it or modify it somewhat to allow it on some occasions. That's my reading of it, I'm pretty sure. And I see like University Heights, they banned it. Others may just be waiting to see what develops. It doesn't take effect till July 1st, but.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean-
but
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
This says that Governor DeWine, House Bill 172 alleviated the governor's concerns. The bill maintains local control by allowing local governments to restrict the dates and times that individuals can discharge consumer-grade fireworks or to impose a complete ban. So the question is, what do they consider consumer-grade fireworks? Is that going to, I guess that's just going to...
Bottle rockets and stuff.
And buying a bunch of firecrackers. Do firecrackers, are those included in that? I would suppose so, but I would want, what's a consumer-grade firework?
Right.
But apparently we can restrict if we want to allow it, and I'd have to read this more. We can restrict, the times. It's got to be over by 11 o'clock or something like that. But I know it's difficult. That's difficult to do, just in my own neighborhood when we have fireworks going on at 1:30 in the morning. I know, if people call the police, I know my neighbors, they end up calling me for some reason. Some of them have in the past. And, the police are spread so thin, by the time the police get there, the fireworks are over and, nobody's doing anything.
It's definitely hard.
It's very difficult to keep track of and in that. So I don't know what we want to do in this instance.
Muslim, obviously.
And right now, we do ban them, they're not permitted at all.
Yeah, we have them banned.
Yeah.
Completely.
We're gonna find out right now.
Kind of reaffirm that if that's what you want to do, or allow it on certain occasions if that's what you want to do. But it's all defined as to what what is permitted, what isn't permitted in the state code.
Okay.
And even in our code, as it exists now, it's pretty detailed, and it's pretty similar to, I think, to what the state code is now.
Lights in India.
But I didn't compare it completely with the state code, but they say, our ordinance is actually very thorough. It's
Literally means like
very
lamps.
thorough.
7 pages long.
7 pages long,
I
but
know. Yeah. But, so I think those definitions still stand strong, those are still what the fireworks are. And I did see some communities allow the little snaps, they throw the snap things for kids or some lower grade fireworks or. You can do whatever you want to do.
I did receive something from Lisa Barno, from the Cuyahoga County Mayors and City Managers Association. She sent us some examples. I'll have to print some off for some different communities. None of them actually real close to us. The ones that I met with, the communities that were close to us, are still working on it, besides 2 that banned them altogether. And then I do have some from the county managers, mayors and city managers did, Lake County did respond, like East Lake, they're waiting on a response. Kirtland, nothing has been discussed, you know, there's no changes at this time, you know, some are. So we're right where everybody else is too, but we gotta, you know, think, so why don't we think about, I talked to the chief because I think that's important too, and from his standpoint, and maybe that's something I can have him talk to a little bit next week. That wouldn't be no problem either. Or the next COW meeting in April is his feelings on it, and he did talk to his staff, and they felt, you know, to have some type of restriction on it, of course. So I think we should. I have no problem being very vocal about it. I think we should. I'm not really in favor of it. I'm not in favor of it. I wish everybody could be responsible, and you could, but I don't think everybody will be. I think we'll end up battling it more than things, so. Doesn't mean you can't revisit it. We can always keep it restrictive, and you can revisit it every year or whenever you want. You can always revisit it, but that's where I stand right now. I don't know how everybody else feels.
It is restricted right now, and we're still battling it.
Oh, exactly. That's the, and we're probably going to battle it more because most people are going to see what, you know, what the governor has said and think, well, what they can do. But so, John, if you want to continue to research it, you know.
And the chief actually goes through his chief's meeting every week, you know, so maybe you can see what other departments are doing in the area. They think it's our southeast, the side that he participates in that chief's meeting. And I'll talk to some of the other prosecutors and law directors and see. But it is an enforcement nightmare. I mean, you know, it's hard to catch somebody in the act.
Mayor Colera?
Yes.
I just had one question. This is for more so for Mr. Montello, as it relates to the new law in a statutory village versus a charter village. You know, how that whole, I'm not asking you to answer it right now, but as you're looking into it, where do statutory villages stand as it relates to the home rule portion for this law and others, but specifically for this one?
I can tell you right now, it trumps our ordinance. July 1st of this year, state law supersedes our ordinances. We could create one, we could modify it to state ordinance.
Yeah, he has it in there where we're allowed to do that, correct?
Yeah. But right now they're banned in our community, but we'd have to reaffirm that. You know,
So we have to do something.
action.
We're going to have to vote on it one way or the other. So there's action that's going to have to take place.
I'll check into it a little further. Maybe we don't have the power because we are a statutory village.
Yeah, that could be different. It might be because, go ahead, Mr.
No, I was just saying similarly, Mayor, you know, in your conversations with the, your mayors associations,
Right.
you know, maybe you could separate those conversations from those statutory municipalities versus those who have, you know, charter
Charters.
municipalities. See what the differences might be, if there are any in their village.
Yeah, our decision might not be as hard as we think. Or harder. Or harder. So I'll do that. We'll get more information for everybody. Take a look at it. But we certainly need to get it done before, we do have a deadline, right? What's the?
July 1st.
Yeah, July 1st. But we want to get it done before that, so.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Jennifer.
I was wondering if we could move to the items for Angela, since she has to be leaving.
Yeah, I think we're almost, I think, because we can talk about that under events, okay.
Oh, yeah, you
Not
could
the
talk
rush.
about it under there, you're fine.
Yeah, we wouldn't even have to move anything.
Okay.
Does anybody have any comments on item 5, which is the ordinance for fireworks, our ordinance and a new change with the state. Yes, Don?
Yeah, now it's-
Like a slow-moving train.
Still moving though.
Good evening. Don Hadru, Rochelle Drive. Mr. Mayor, members of council. Last COW meeting, as certainly you recall, I'm encouraged by your comments this evening, at least that you open up the issue. And certainly this is an issue that is going to be needed to be addressed by every government official from a city or village in the state of Ohio. It's already begun. For example, Thursday, March 3rd of last week, at 10 p.m., on the first newscast on Channel 8, Fox News, they had public officials from the city of Lorraine. The mayor talked about how important this issue is. And I think one of the most important parts of what was passed by our governor, which doesn't make sense, of opening it up to maybe 10 more holidays or more, plus whatever else people feel like they can use. This certainly partly ties in with what a resident said earlier today, talking about the finances of our village. The burden that it's going to put on our village and our police department. That was addressed in this article on Channel 8. One of the council persons, Victoria Kempton, this is another reason of where we're at in society. They've had instances out there where fireworks has been thrown at police cars and police officers, possibly due to the lack of respect of where we're at for our police officers. She did not give that reason, but it's common sense tells you that could be part of it. She even advocated for a first offense, $1,000. Because somebody's going to have to pay for all this extra overtime and maybe hiring of more police to enforce this issue. It's nothing but trouble. So it's important from that aspect, because I cannot understand from me, the logic of why this was even passed as an open door. At least we have options. And the city officials and council must take that into consideration and use that to our advantage, because, say for example, what day other than July 4th would be proper really for fireworks? Why he says there's possibly 10 other holidays on the calendar that it's acceptable. You not only have to possibly define what kind of fireworks, how big, how loud, how powerful. And Mr. Mayor alluded earlier to certainly the damages and how dangerous they are, even used in the hands of professionals. So there was an article that I ran across somewhere in the papers, because I do a lot of reading, that a company that was formed, this is their business, to handle events. And they were even injured with an explosion here just recently. And they're professionals. This is what they get paid to do. So this stuff is just dangerous. So I think, my logic from the thinking is, even though the governor is putting a burden on the governments of the cities and the villages in the state, I think it's open door where it's to our advantage, where you can really spell it out much more clearer in future legislation to what the limitations are and the penalties, and they have to be stiff. That also in this article that was given, I don't know how long it ran, maybe 5 minutes, 6 minutes, it's a fairly long one. Another council person on the city of Lorraine mentioned that there has to be accountability and stiff repercussions if whatever is passed, and you know they're going to pass something, that it is not honored, you pay the price. I was even shocked. I didn't quite fall off the chair listening to it, but when I heard a $1,000 fine for first offense, I think that's pretty stiff. So we have an open opportunity here to really think it out, put it in black and white, and that certainly would help reduce the burden on our police department and along on the sanctity of our village. And I think we need to get together with the surrounding communities and see what's on their mind, right? So we have a good, solid foundation, no loopholes. Thank you very much for your attention and your time.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Any other comments related to this item?
Nothing on the live chat.
Okay, how about nothing?
Nothing on the live chat.
All right, we'll move on to item 6 then. Discussion on event center fee updates. I know Angela has to get rolling, so she has a comment to talk about the event center and stuff. Go ahead, Angela. And we'll
Oh,
get
yes.
that.
Jennifer asked that I backtrack. For a couple weeks now, I was waiting for it to come up, and I alluded to it in the last meeting. But just to give a little more definition with the property tax situation on the event center building, in about late July of 2020 is when I had received a bill and was like, whoa, this is a pretty big bill, what's going on here? So that's when I reached out to the county and have been going back and forth with them since, because they gave me the questionnaire to fill out, they asked for the financials, and then my contact there had put it into another department in the county's court last July, actually, and I've been trying to follow up. It might have even been June, and I was supposed to follow up in July. So I just followed up about a month ago, and she was going to check with them. We still haven't heard, but again, as the mayor stated, we've talked to Tom Jordan, and it's not uncommon for the county to sit on this, and they could be mulling over the pieces, parts of what we do there, you know, just to make sure that we're using it mostly for community use. But, so yeah, so if anybody has any questions about that, yep, we know, we're aware, there's a big bill sitting out there, but we've been advised, obviously, to not pay it. We may need to end up, the recommendation from the woman I was dealing with was that we would be exempt from 18 forward, but we purchased in, I want to say 17, did we not? So whatever was remaining, all this money out there, but I also don't want to poke the sleeping bear, so if they're taking their good old time, that's kind of on them right now.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Jen.
Angela, that was also complicated with the lot split.
Yes, there was, yeah, they split the plat. There was 2 plats, you know, there's a plat in the back and then there's the actual. So yeah, somehow that got split, and I don't know that we even initiated the split, to be honest. So the property itself, she really hasn't made any separate commentary on whether or not the property itself on that back part of the lot would be taxable still or not, but yeah, I mean, I put in for both because it's all part of our one property, and I did mention that we're not even sure how it got split, so. Yep, you got it. So there's two bills out
Unfortunately, they don't err
there.
the other way. Put you in the exemption part, they put you in the non-exempt part when a transfer goes. Go ahead, Mr.
Yeah, Mayor Colgraf, a couple of questions that one related to the lot split. Was that have anything to do with the sale of the home that was originally
That was separate.
portioned? And did the sale of the home have any impact on the revenue side?
No.
Okay.
It's a separate piece, yeah.
All right, and then my final question is how is it listed that property listed, is it listed as a community center or an event center? Is
I
it-
don't even know that it's listed as
I believe
either.
it's just listed as owned by the Village of
Owned by the
Walton
village.
Hills.
Yeah, I have the.
It's not listed as any particular thing,
Okay.
yeah.
But what do we call it with the county?
The county just, it's a parcel, so that the county
It's just a
calls it,
parcel.
a parcel that the government
With a
owns here.
number, yeah.
Yeah, they won't really, they don't have a title on it, so to speak, so it doesn't say, like you say, Brayweed and, at your
It
home when you
doesn't-
look it
it
up.
doesn't say
Doesn't
event
say
center.
Walton Hills Event Center on there, no, nope. Doesn't say anything, actually, I could probably even look it
Mr.
up right now.
Mayor?
Yes.
I know when we first received that property, there was some talk, I remember, about what to call it. And it was being called the community center, and it was getting confused with the community room.
Right.
People were coming up here when we had events up there. So that's when probably the prior Mayor Hurst, I believe, had that sign made, and we
Just double checking what it's called.
didn't make it by a resolution or anything, it just became the event center as opposed to the community center.
Well, I think the sign does say community outside.
It's-
The
we
sign-
call it-
the big sign
We
says
call
community.
it-
says
we called it 50
community
different
event
things, we
center.
did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, it needs a designated.
Mr. Mayor, we
Yeah.
called it the community center, and everyone was very confused.
And it's
Yeah.
just listed as Village of Walton Hills, that's all it's listed as.
I did take the opportunity to discuss some of that with some of the other mayors last Friday, because we met it in at Seven Hills, and they have a very nice meeting room there, with the folding dividers, and it opens up, and the mayor from North Olmsted, she asked, what do you guys rent this out, And Anthony said, yeah, and I was waiting for the opportunity, because they were talking about it. I said, Anthony, I said, do you rent it out just to residents, or do you rent it out to, and it was just, they just rent it out to their residents. And then we got into the whole subject of what we're talking about now, with how we're trying to get the exemption, and that kind of stirred some other conversations too
Where
and
was
stuff,
this
so. What's that?
Where were you at?
Seven Hills.
Oh, we used to rent to non-residents.
Oh, he doesn't?
No, I shouldn't say that. You do have to have a resident on your,
Yeah.
you do,
Yeah.
you do. It's not even a big room, it's attached where our pool is but yeah.
It was right next to the basketball.
Yeah,
courts.
you do, oh, that's even a separate one.
But they rent it
But
out.
you do have to-
The basketball court, they rent them out by the hour. It was interesting. I think he said $40 an hour or something, $25 an hour for the basketball court, an old wooden basket. I mean, it was just interesting how they go by the hour instead of
A flat fee.
yeah, it's just.
We do by the hour. We may also, because we
I
extend
forget that's your community.
we extend our memberships to Parma as well, and probably Parma Heights. So we may also have a rate for members, but it would be of those three communities, yeah.
Any other, anything else, Angela, any questions from any residents or any residents streaming
Nothing on the stream.
relating to that before Angela? Then we'll go into the other comments, whatever I want to talk about, the event center with what you and Mary have been working on and what we passed out, and the rec committee has been working on and stuff. Okay, Angela, if you want to get out, apologize for not getting out here a little earlier.
Nothing's been happening, but maybe because it keeps cutting in and out. Maybe because it keeps cutting in and out.
What we did pass out was, Mr. Montello started the ordinance, the changes to the ordinance that we have in place, changing the fees and different things in the ordinance, and I know the rec committee has been working on it along with Natalie and Mary. The things you see in bold are the changes from the original.
you do all,
I think so. I'm not, sorry, I'm not 100% sure. There's quite a, lot of
Sure.
talk going back and forth.
And what's,
yes, it looks like this.
Oh, okay, I got it.
And I just got this tonight, so that's why I asked Jen if all the proposed changes were in there.
Right, Mary was still made some, as you can see, she made a few of those handwritten ones, there's some recent ones, so it's kind of in the works too, so.
Yeah, if we go to the page after that, first of all, some background. After the last week's meeting, Ms. Delansky reached out to me and said that she was taking the committee's and council's recommendations for this ordinance, for the changes, but she had some questions. So I met with her on Wednesday morning, last Wednesday morning, and we went through it, and we basically made up about a page and a half of notes for Mr. Montello to decipher and change these ordinances. So I'll go down one by one. There's really not that many, but I'll go down one by one and tell you what we changed, so it's kind of I can explain that. So ordinance changes 1062.01G, as in golf. The committee had talked about, and subsequently the COW had talked about giving the keys, distributing the keys to people who are renting the facility, and Councilwoman Allen actually was the one that brought it up. And it's already in our ordinance that it says no person shall give, loan, or distribute keys to the community hall or multi-purpose room to any organization permitted to use the hall. That is also reflected in the ordinance for, it's in item G for the banquet hall also. So that wording is in there, so no keys should be distributed to anybody that's renting those halls. 1062.01R, we added multi-purpose room to that sentence. Only residents of the village may rent the community hall or multi-purpose room.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Jennifer.
Councilman Bryan, Councilman Spitznagel, community hall, is that referring to the community room
Across the street.
Okay, so it's putting those two are together.
Yes, the community
Okay.
hall and the multi-purpose room. That's the way they always were in this
Okay.
ordinance, yeah. So again, we added a multi-purpose room to that statement. 1062.01T is in Tango. That's emboldened. All residents, organizations, or resident group of residents using the community hall or multi-purpose room shall be required to provide a security deposit in the amount to be determined by council. And I see Mr. Montello, we had a question of whether we needed the actual fees. The current ordinance has fees written in it. And we thought it would be easier, we changed the fees at the rec committee level, and then we proposed that at the COW level, and those were agreed upon. Apparently it's okay by Mr. Montello to put that wording in there as determined by council. That way, if we change it by motion or whatever, we don't
Right.
have to go back and change the
Redo the whole
ordinance.
thing.
I would assume that would kind of fall underneath too if we wanted to eliminate the fees for a benefit as we've had in the past.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And we added that sentence, Mr. Montello added it, the cost for the rental shall be determined from time to time by council. I don't know what this handwritten,
Well, that's just her question, because I changed the V.
oh,
I deleted the V because we deleted the, if you read on the next one, we
said the fee for, it had the fee schedule in there, and we took that out completely. So we'll redo the alphabetization.
I did already, that
Yeah.
she was questioning whether I could do that, so that.
Yeah, okay. Item V is in Victor. Where is
It's
V?
actually, is it now?
Oh, okay, it's now U,
Oh, so
okay.
you should have bolded that.
One second.
What we did was, we had talked about the chief, police chief and/or their designee can waive the security personnel for any meeting. We took out the 75 persons or over, and we just made it any and all organizations, groups, or persons using the community hall or multipurpose room shall, at their expense, provide security personnel as provided by the chief or his or her designee. And then the next sentence, of course, is the waiverability on that. And 1062.02 deals with the banquet hall, and it's basically the same thing as we move down, as was in the other section. Item U on let's see. I gotta switch pages here.
Well, number 3,
Yeah, F3. Is that where you're at?
Yes, that's,
Yeah,
I would say that's where we're all at.
We changed it, we took the fees out of the actual ordinance, determined from time to time by council. That's what we put in item 3. 1062.02G is in golf. Again, with the keys, it says no person shall alone distribute keys to the banquet hall or any organization. 02R, only residents of the village may rent the banquet hall. We changed that whole sentence and made it to read that. T, as in tango, all resident organizations and all resident groups or residents using the banquet hall shall be required to provide a security deposit in the amount determined by council. So we made the security deposits and the rentals as determined by council.
Mr. Spitznagel,
Yeah.
to make a point there, that, because it's not in the legislation, it will be in the contract.
Yes.
So it isn't, when a resident gets the contract, that will be spelled out the fee. It isn't like all of a sudden you come in and, one person gets one fee. It might not be in the legislation because council wants the ability to change it from time to time, which makes sense without having to go through a change in legislation. But that, when you come in, that's going to be spelled out in the contract,
Yes.
what that fee is.
Yes.
So you're agreeing to that fee.
And item U, again, that's reflective of the police chief or his designee. You have to have security. It takes out the 75 persons. However, it can be waived by the police chief. Appendix A and B. Appendix A go to the community room or multipurpose room. Appendix B goes to the banquet hall. Those are what's written in the actual contract. The appendices have the dollar amount, and we changed the dollar amount to reflect what was recommended by the rec committee and agreed upon by council. So the community or multi-purpose room, just for the record, it states resident fees for the rental of the community hall and kitchen are $100 per day with a $150 security deposit. That has not changed. That stayed the same. The multi-purpose room and kitchen are $200 per day with a $500 security deposit. This deposit will be refunded if no damages are incurred and the hall is left clean, including kitchen area, the community hall, and multi-purpose room. This hasn't changed. Room occupancy is 200 persons maximum. It was needless. So,
Mr. Spitznagel, I thought we were taking those amounts out. So
this is the contract. The appendix is reflective of the contract.
Yeah, but the appendix is part of the legislation.
But I thought, it was an
Right.
afterthought, I originally made the changes, and then I thought, well, let's just keep it blank, it's just a form
You
contract.
can if you want.
Yeah, that way
You
could-
can keep it blank, that'd be.
That's what we need
Yeah.
to do,
That's
because
right.
otherwise,
And we're
then,
You're
changing it
exactly
all the
right.
time.
That would be better.
that's why I said what I
Yeah,
said, because
we
I was
did
under
change
the
it.
impression we
This
were
was
keeping it blank.
But my original proposal did have that.
That'd be
But
great.
After I thought about what we would, otherwise we'd have to amend Appendix A. and-
Yeah, because Appendix A is part of the legislative, okay.
Yeah.
So we're all on the same page there.
Yeah, we'll keep that blank then, but that's what the fees are.
Right.
Just so we're clear, but yeah, for now, that's what the fees are, but we'll keep that blank. Mr. Montello will change that. We changed item 2, parties must pay in full 30 days prior to the function. It was originally, I believe, 15. Item number 5, all gatherings shall provide security, and that is reflective in the ordinance also, as we said. And that's it for that. Appendix B will change, we changed the fees, but that's going to be dash lines. And again, the fee for the banquet hall is $750 per day with a $750 security deposit. Item 5, it states all gatherings shall provide security.
Number 2.
Number 2, 30 days prior. We changed that from 15 to 30 days prior. There were also, if you read the current ordinance, in the fee schedule, there was a fee over here, and then over here in this other item, it stated what the security deposit was, and then over here, a cleanup fee and all that, we took that out. So it's all of these as determined by council, and then as Mr. Montello said, he'll make it blanks. So we cleaned it up.
Looks good.
And I'll make the same changes to 10, to the TJ Young Park as well.
Correct.
I actually did them already, but I didn't pass it out because I didn't get it done till this afternoon. But I'll have that to you probably tomorrow or something here. I'll email it from there. It's okay with him.
Thank you. Thank you,
I
Jerry.
already made those changes too. So we should be able to have it, if that's what you decide, to have it for the next meeting.
Yeah, I think it's important to have it for the next meeting, just because, and I'd like to ask for it for suspension, so we can make the new prices effective April 1st.
Sure.
Sound like a plan?
Mayor Colbert?
Yes, Mr. Lee.
And Councilman Smith, I have a couple questions. For clarity, under 106201 on the first page.
Okay.
It says community hall and multi-purpose room rules and regulations, item C, where it recognizes certain groups or in the community. How does groups in the community that are not listed, are they covered under section E? I mean, I'm thinking of like, there's a newer group, the Real Housewives of Walton Hills. How does one become part of the recognized group?
They can, these recognized groups were historically a blanket permission to use the group. They would have to come before council. There's actually an ordinance that says, and we did follow it for a few years, but for example, the men's club is defunct basically, and things like that. They had to state their intentions to us, I believe it was by June of that year, write us and say, yeah, we'd like to use it. And then that permission would be granted for the following year. That's in ordinance form. But the last few years, we haven't done that because these groups are, so that's what would, if they want to be specifically listed.
But otherwise,
It's not that big a deal.
they would be covered under E, and where it says any organization desiring to use the community hall, they would have to just, in writing, seek permission.
That's if they want to be listed here.
So
See
how,
what I mean?
so how does a group that's not recognized gain access to the community?
You can
room?
just rent it.
What we have, Ray, like we did, they'll come to the administration, and then I bring it to council, like we did last week with the Ladies Guild, St. Mary's Lady Guild.
Okay, all right.
Well, and it just came one other time, I believe it's the AMVets, just a letter was read to council
Yeah.
last year or the year before asking for permission, which we
Yeah.
said fine.
Yeah, I was more referencing groups that's already
Right, I understand.
organized in the village.
Right, well, and that
They're not-
AMVET group was members from the village, so they just came to council and had read a letter asking for use of it.
Okay, that's fine.
And they designated what, like the first Tuesday or the second Monday of the, I don't remember offhand, but, you know, what their like regularly scheduled meetings would be.
And those uses have been not like Saturdays, Sundays, or Fridays.
Yeah, or Wednesday.
You know, like that, St. Mary's, the Ladies Guild, that's a Wednesday during the day. There's nothing right now going on there, you know. They're a 501c2, and that was important, because they're having a fundraiser. We only allow fundraisers up there, they're a nonprofit. That's even if you want to rent it. You can't rent it to have a regular fundraiser. You have to be a nonprofit.
I think we waived that once for, didn't somebody have cancer or something?
Yeah, we did
like
waive
that?
it for-
We waived
it was
that, which
for-
was a good cause, that's all.
But
That's about as close
but the
as you can get to it
continual, more of the continual, like, regular use, like the women's club would use, or the OWL would use, that's how the AMVETs came and said, we would like to use it. And actually, I think they just sent a letter to you, Mayor, and you had read it in.
And I
Asking
read it
council.
and asked you guys.
Yeah, because it was a specific day, just like the women's club has their designated day each month. You know, the OWL were a little more flexible, so we just call up and say, hey, we need an hour's worth of time in there, you know, on this day.
The community room across the hall there, the car club, which is a residence, they went through the same thing many years ago. We used to have what's the game?
Mahjong?
Mahjong, yeah, they used to come during the week.
Chess club.
Yeah.
Chess
Same
club,
thing.
yeah, we granted the chess club.
Yeah, as long as, I believe as long as it's primarily village residents, you know, it's not an issue for them to use it at no charge, as long as it's not being, you know, we want it every Saturday night, well, that's a different story.
But that's been mostly for the community room right across the hall here.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay,
Any other questions related to the ordinance? So we'll have, Mr. Montello will draft it up and we'll have it ready for the council meeting along with the other ones. So I'll kind of, before we go to other business, we'll kind of go through it. So we'll have tracks construction for resolution 2022-5 left, the tracks construction Tulip Lane, the water main replacement legislation for suspension, and I don't dare ask who's going to do that. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I would prefer,
See that?
Pick me.
And I won't dare ask who's going to do item B, since Mary Berner Miller started the trouble. So we'll get that together. We'll have the ordinance ready for 2020-1. And if everybody's comfortable with it, we could pass it under suspension. I'll have if not, we can always put it on for first reading. And I could have Mike Gervaisi here, Sergeant Mike Gervaisi, and maybe the chief will want to come too. So we'll have that legislation, John, for both of those. Fireworks, we'll continue to work on that, maybe have some draft legislation, we'll see, or draft legislation from other communities. And then we'll have this legislation for item 6, we'll have the legislation for what we just went through for the event centers and the community rooms.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Jennifer?
is there a time frame with the body camera grant that it has to be?
Yeah, I think there
I
was.
think there
I
is.
I have to
I
look on my
remember
own.
off the top of my head.
Yeah,
Yes,
and I
it
was thinking it might have been the end of March, or was it the end of it?
I
Let me
think
find
it's-
that out, because that will be dependent on that too. But we'll get that to you.
Do you have it? I kept it, I didn't want to dig it out, so.
Any questions from the residents relating to item 6, the event center, the resolution, and the contract? Jennifer, any from the
No,
residents that
nothing
are
online.
streaming?
Nothing online right now.
Okay. We'll move on to other business. Anybody have anything for other business? Yes, Mr. Spitznagle.
I've been in contact with Matt Dolan's office for a capital budget grant application that it's actually due in on the 18th. Lady Carol Phillips, she sent me the information, which I'll be filling out, and of course I'll give it to your office before I submit it, obviously. And it is at one of the rec meetings that we had, Mr. Nielsen came up with a schematic of pickleball courts that he was approached by several residents because they want to have pickleball courts, I guess. And just as a matter of fact, last month I was talking to a friend of mine who lives in Michigan, and he said he and his wife, I mean, I guess it's a real big thing around the country, and they play all the time in groups, large groups, and they make a whole day of it. So I went down to T.G. Young Park, of course, being good stewards of our money. We and our facilities, we have a limited amount of space. Of course, you know, we're taking out the basketball court. So I'm going to pass this out. Now, this is not a CAD drawing, it's my drawing, but Joe Gelati would be very proud of me because I took my engineering rule out, and it is to scale. You want to pass those down?
And it's not even on graph paper.
It's
Brian.
not,
You
it's not.
did well.
He did.
Where the batting cages are. That whole area down there is, if you look to the, if you orient it to the north, it's 118 feet from north to south, east to west, it's 110 feet. And you can, I actually measured that entire area. I did speak with Rob, and he's going to look, I could not get in the place, but, because it was locked. Looking at the west part of that entire area, it looks like there is, I could see possibly one small crack developing in the asphalt. He's going to take a look at it. Of course, that was before his thumb operation, so I'll give him some time. I'll check with him next week to see what he thinks about that. So the pickleball courts, they are 44 feet long by 20 feet wide, and a pro half-court basketball court is 50 feet at the baseline by 47 feet long, and a hoop would go where that 50-foot mark is on the drawing. I guess you could put it at the other end also. It doesn't really matter. The equipment, I did a brief equipment search. You can get, I would not want to put anything in ground. I would have it movable. Pickleball court nets are around $340 for a Spalding net, I believe it is. And they're on rollers, so they can be moved easily and winterized, gotten out of there, and there's a shed there, put in the shed, I guess. And they're very portable, but they're sturdy. Again, I'll do some more research on the different types and prices and things like that. portable basketball hoop, so we would need 2 of those, so that's roughly, $800. The portable basketball hoop, a pro basketball hoop with a backboard of 70, I believe it's 75 inches. That's slightly under, would have to be striped and with the markings on there. The drawing here with the, let's see, the sizes that we're talking about, it would easily fit in that area. And as you know, it's down the hill there. So as that basketball court, the current one, is taken out, if people are playing down there, the sound goes up. It's not projected towards the houses that are close there. I did speak with Mr. Nielsen. Mr. Nielsen was instrumental in doing a lot of work at T.G. Young Park, a lot of drainage, and a lot of batting cage work with the baseball clubs. There, where that 46-foot mark is, there are, what do you say, Mr. Nielsen? Are there like 3 or 4 electrical outlets there?
Yeah, I'm not sure that, we have them on the one end there, where it's on the north end, that's where we plug in the batting key, or batting machine, or.
Yeah, so that area would stay
Right.
batting cage.
And I was just asking Mary if she knew how many teams we had here last year. I didn't get a chance to find out, but I was just wondering. We had 2 cages there. We had 2 batting cages, and we really, the whole time that I had teams up there, you're talking about for the basketball and the pickleball. I mean, we used that for, just infield practice because the fields were too muddy to, just ground balls and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But actually, you could take the 1 cage out. I'm sure you could get by with just the 1 cage.
Mm-hmm. Well, the way we have it marked now, there's both cages, there's plenty of room.
Yeah, there's still plenty of room there.
And again, with the equipment, nothing would be in ground, so it's multi-use.
And that shed-
Using that whole area for whatever,
Sorry, Andy, yeah, the shed is inside the fence too, so it's locked up, and then the shed has a lock on it, so.
Yeah, I don't know what's in the shed.
Well, the machines, the pitching machines,
Oh, the pitching machines are in
yeah,
there?
they're in there on wheels. You wheel those.
If we took one of the batting cages out, I don't have the dimension of a full court. That's something, do we really need a full-size court?
Well, it would replace completely the one we're pulling out.
Yeah.
The only thing is that the part to the east is not paved. The part on the west
Yeah, you
where
see
he's
where-
showing the basketball court and pickleball courts,
Mhm.
that had been repaved.
Yeah, see the 64 feet, that's new pavement. The 46 feet all the way down from north to south, that's old pavement. And that would be in the grant that I'm asking for, to see if we can get some money to pave that entire area. I don't know, I do know that, next Friday, I believe, or Thursday or Friday is when the grant is due, the application.
Mhm.
I don't know when they're going to be awarding the grants, though. But I'm thinking and part of the grant is they want to know how much the municipality is gonna, how much skin they have in the game. too.
Right.
So I'll probably put at least the equipment in there, so.
It's not a matching grant or anything like that.
No, it's not. They just want to know, if they're,
If you're really
we-
interested.
Exactly. We've got a need. I did take some pictures down there. The current basketball court, that's even in worse shape than it was.
Right.
And that's, Rob's going to take that out before people start running around on that. But, so that's it. That's, I think it's a good multi-purpose facility that people can go in there and do whatever they want to do and play basketball, and hopefully this pickleball thing. According to Mr. Nielsen, you were approached by
Yeah,
people?
several people, I guess it's big, I was talking to Mary Delansky, and she was saying that over at Independence, it's pretty big, so.
I do know that the tennis outfits, the clubs, they are putting in courts. They're changing some of their regular tennis courts into pickleball courts. And it's good for seniors too, because you don't, it's like a tennis court,
Right.
miniaturized tennis court. That's exactly what it is. So you don't have to be running around. You can get your exercise.
But when we first started looking at it, there was enough room, we thought, for 4 pickleball courts. But then we thought, well, it's something new, and, you know, maybe give it a chance and see if it catches on. And with the basketball court being torn out, you know, it gives the kids a place during the day to go down and play basketball. So, again, multi-purpose, so.
And we'd have to mark it, obviously. So
Yeah.
I'll talk with Rob Kalman
It
to
wouldn't
see what.
take much to market.
So that's where I'm at, and I'll have that, I should have that done by probably Wednesday at the latest, so we can send it, it's just an email send in, it's
Right.
not a, so, that's where we're at with it.
I know, Mr. Spatel, you sent in a grant, a couple, I mean, I know you've done multiple grants, but the last grant you did do for the basketball court on top.
Yes, we haven't heard
I
anything.
think Mr. Nielsen, you helped with that or whatever too.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
baseball. That was,
Well, with the
We did,
baseball.
we did basketball court though.
We did basketball court, we were turned down the one time, I sent it in, I reapplied, and have not heard back. So, and that's an ongoing thing, but we haven't heard anything.
yeah, that was the one, okay, that was the one we turned down for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Jennifer.
Councilman, you had talked about one time, were you including the tennis courts also with the grant? I know we spoke
Yeah.
about possibly getting those repaved.
I was looking at that, I was looking at it's the National Tennis Association, and I may have that slightly wrong, but they had some form of financing or a grant, but I looked further into it, and I think it was more of a financing type thing as opposed to a grant. So
Would
there
that be
are,
possible with this grant that you're looking at to include?
I'm sorry, what?
Would it be possible, do you think, for the tennis courts to be included in this one that you're working on right now with the pickleball courts?
I can include it. You don't get unless you ask, right? So
Sure.
I can certainly include that.
Yeah,
And at the time I looked at, the first time we applied for the basketball grant, I had included more than just pavement. I had included the in-ground, it was the actual court
Right.
tiles, outdoor court tiles. That was $17,000 at the time. You know, I don't know, I don't know if we want to go that route anymore. I wouldn't, you know, especially if you're putting it in an area that you want to be used for multiple things, you know. I think marking's good enough, just as long as the pavement is good.
sure.
But I can certainly do that. I can list that also.
You don't know unless you ask.
Well, exactly. All they can do is say no, or,
Yeah.
well, here's, you want 50,000, we'll give you 20,000.
Right.
We'll take
Well, and that
20.
grant program, I believe, only comes around every 2 years.
I believe so.
it said?
Yeah, I called it, the paperwork had 2021 on there as a deadline, and that was the thing I called. I said,
Right.
is this a typo? She said, yeah, it's a typo. So,
Well, good. Looks good, Brian.
Mayor
Brian, looks
Colgrove?
good. Yes.
I just have one
Mr.
question related to that, Councilman Spitznagel.
Mm-hmm.
In this grant application, is there flexibility? Should the plan change, or, you know, you want to do tennis versus pickleball, or pickleball, more pickleball versus basketball. And the only reason I'm asking that question is due to the Recreation Committee survey that's out. And depending upon what our residents might say, they may be interested in.
Yeah, and there is. It's a PDF document that basically, one of the questions is, to describe your scope of work, of what you're asking for. So, if we ask for
Outdoor recreational facilities.
Yeah, such as tennis courts and things like this, this is what we'd like to accomplish. And this is our timeline of accomplishing it. I can word it where there can be that flexibility, And again, I don't know when they're going to award that.
Right.
So we do need flexibility in that too, so.
We'll have to keep an eye out for that grant again in '24.
Yeah. Yeah, our playground equipment appears to be in good shape up there. The baseball grant, that's a recurring grant also, and since we had that, I know the Indians came back and gave us more. So, we'll see. I know the sporting goods stores too, Dick's Sporting Goods, they have grants and things like that. And I've tried them in the past, and I can always try them again. But I think as far as a plan, I think we can move on this. And I'll do some more research on pricing of that equipment, the netting and basketball hoops, and give us some ideas of those costs. And hopefully we can find it in the budget. If that grant doesn't come through, we can find it in the budget to at least purchase something for the residents.
Right. Any questions from council, then we'll go to the residents?
Well, I don't know if you had not related to this, I had another.
Okay, we'll address this. Go ahead, Mr. Arcon. Any questions from any other residents?
I had other business, I don't know.
Yeah.
Denny Harkeye, Hickory Drive. Fred, the shed contains right now a batting machine, the pitching machines.
Should be 2 of them in there, yeah.
I think now there's only 1 left in there. I could be mistaken about that. One of them I think is completely out of commission, but there might be 2 of them in there. Other than that, for the racetrack, we store all of the borders for the barriers. The shed's all full of those.
It's full.
It's totally full, plus the tables that we use for our pit space are also in there. So that shed is completely full.
Okay.
And I lock the fence every year when we're not using the track, and I keep the shed locked. I do have the keys for it, but the service department has the keys as well.
Okay.
And then you're located in this pickleball court in where the batting cages are now? Is that where you're thinking about putting that?
No, everything would be on the western part of that whole area.
The western part of that, what area are you talking about?
The western part of that fenced area, the western part of the whole area.
The western part of the area is now the racetrack.
But it's going to be multi-purpose.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about putting 2 pickleball courts and a basketball court there.
Where the racetrack is?
Sure. Yeah.
No way.
Oh, okay. I'm glad.
I mean, come on, what are you talking about here?
You're welcome to, we have to, as we said before, we have limited finances and limited space. We have to use our space efficiently. And you're welcome to run your cars there if you want.
How can you run cars in the middle of a pickleball court with nets and stuff in there? That's ridiculous.
Okay. Well, that's, if that's. the
When is this
direction
plan
the
being
council wants
conceived?
to
I never
go.
heard of this until now. What are you doing?
Well, I didn't think we had to consult with you, but you were given the opportunity to use it while nobody else was using it, but that's not your area.
It didn't say it was my area. It's set aside as a racetrack. It's no more my area than the playground equipment is the kids' area.
I'm glad you acknowledge that. Thank you. And we're gonna, if this comes through, we're gonna use this as a multi-purpose area. We don't have a basketball court anymore. It's dilapidated. We can't use it. I
You
wish-
got basketball nets up there on top that kids are playing with all the time up there. There's 2 of them up there.
Okay. That's not a court. That's behind the barn.
The last time you talked about a basketball court that I remember, you were concerned that it was going to be a breeding ground for crime. Now you don't care about that?
No, we didn't say that.
I heard you say that in a public meeting. You said that.
You have to get the tape on that.
Oh, come on, Brian.
No, that's, if you'd like to see the diagram, I'll give you one.
I don't need to see a diagram. I know what the western part of that property looks like.
Oh, okay. So,
Is this
you know,
something?
that's what we're gonna do. If, again,
You get the grant.
equipment, right, equipment costs, we'll see what our budget is. And, we have to design our areas for the use for the village.
Well,
Not
the
just one
village is
thing.
already using that area for a racetrack. Why would you destroy that?
It would be a multi-purpose area. We only have one area down there, that's good. And we have residents, we have other recreational needs in this village. And residents have asked for this, so that's.
Right.
They asked you to put it there?
To get to the point is, no different than the event center is, as the residents have stated, is to get the most use out of it and have the most residents use it. That's why we got the survey in place, and, I mean, that was brought forward, and that's why we're continuing to do things, and the rec committee decided, let's take a look and see if we can better utilize T.G. Young Park, and that's one of the recommendations tonight that he brought forward.
Well, why not take and put all this business up there where the tennis courts are now? Fix that up and put pickleball courts and basketball courts in that area.
Because,
I know, you break your leg trying to play on the cracks.
right,
So you intend to use the paved part of the racetrack to put pickleball courts in?
that's my intention, yes.
So what if we decide we want to have races on Sunday afternoon up there and somebody wants to play
If
pickleball?
nobody's using it, if nobody's using the area, you're welcome to race your cars. Nobody's telling you you can't race your cars. Nobody's telling you that. You can certainly go in that area if nobody's using it, if somebody's playing basketball at the time. But that's not your area.
So if somebody decides to play basketball court there, and we want to run our race cars, then who wins that battle?
It's,
Who's ever there first?
if you're there.
So if you got guys playing basketball on the racetrack pavement right now, and we show up with our cars on Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock and we want to race, we can't race because they're playing basketball in the middle of our track?
Mr. Harkey, I don't know. Mr. Harkey, that's not your area. It's the village's area, and we need to make, it's a large area. We need to make as many recreational facilities for our residents as we can using what we have. That's not your area. You're welcome to use it. I'm not telling you you can't. Nobody here is telling you.
Okay, what are we going to do when 2 people want to use it for 2 different things at the same time?
I don't want to.
Well, you got to think about that. How can 2 people that want to use the same thing at the same time for something different, how's that going to work? That's impossible.
How many,
Go ahead, Mr. Weed.
Yeah, Mayor Colograph, members of council, and Mr. Harkey. Yeah, with this discussion we're having tonight regarding this multi-purpose use of a paved area, we've had similar discussion about community rooms, multi-purpose rooms, and all of those are by reservation. I mean, if this is going to be a multi-purpose area, I think we have to have some clear-cut way of designating if the racetrack group wants to use this, and it's been commonly known that they generally race on Sundays at 1 o'clock. Some kind of way where these different uses would have to have some kind of, process of, not, it can't be first come, first served. That just won't work. I mean, if we're looking at a true multi-purpose area, it have to be some type of reservation or in order for everyone to have their access. If we're going to use this similar area for multi-purposes.
Okay,
Otherwise, you got chaos. You got
right now
unorganized
right
chaos.
now that area is 65 by 120, and it's marked off for a racetrack. There's striping on the road that make an oval track, and there's striping on the path that make a road course out of that racetrack. So now you're talking about taking and marking off courtyards for basketball or for some other thing? You can't do that. Yeah, you can. Okay, what are you going to do with it?
What do you mean?
Well,
I don't want it to be.
there's markings down there to form a racetrack, and now you're going to take that whole area and turn it into a basketball court?
So that means we
Or
never can
pickleball
do
courts?
anything with that
Mr. Mayor?
thing if we can't find a use where more people might use it, we can't do that? I mean, you hear what Mr. Whedon said, and what Mr. Spitznagel said, you can still use it for the racetrack.
Mr. Mayor?
No one's cutting anybody out. We want to make it, you're basically saying the same thing that you're saying we're saying to us, that no one can use it for anything else but a racetrack.
Mr. Mayor, I have
Yes,
several
go ahead.
questions from residents, if I may. The first one is from Milan Verzik saying, can pickleball potentially be played indoors? The racetrack weekly.
There's about 8 residents that race there right now, in case Karen Remy wants to know.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
Mr. Harker,
Yes.
when you race on Sundays, how many hours are you usually up there?
We spend the afternoon there till it gets dark, or till it's
So you race till it gets dark?
or till this. In the summertime it doesn't get dark until night, but certainly after sunset we race there. We're there all afternoon, the
So
entire
from 1
afternoon.
o'clock, 1 o'clock all afternoon?
Yeah, and then plus we go up there during the weekend. We practice and run laps. And then what are you going to do with those? You got the canopy tents all set up there right now.
Yeah, we thought,
You thought
I
what?
thought about that.
What are you going to do about it?
What do you use those,
That's our shelter. We
Oh.
use them all the time. We have canopy covers there. Our pit tables are underneath those tents. And some of that stuff we paid for ourselves.
They'll probably have to go somewhere.
Where would they go? Oh, come on,
Mayor Colbert.
you're
Yes.
enjoying this, aren't you?
I just want to say,
Aren't you?
No.
Yeah, you are. You really are.
I don't want to debate.
no debating.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
As it relates to recreation in the village, and we know that there's new ideas that come up, and you have legacy events as well, like the race, the race club, or however that goes. And we've got this survey out now for recreation, and I think we probably need to just pause. Go ahead with the application, but I think we probably need to pause until we can actually hear back from our residents and to what is important to our residents, versus moving forward with a project that is going to, we have one group that is here representing tonight, and we have a proposal, for a grant. I think we really need to just pause and just take a good hard look at what is the best use up there after we hear from our residents on the survey that's out.
Right now, there's 2 canopy tents set up there. We have all the poles set up for it. We had special concrete barriers made to hold those things in place so the wind doesn't tear them up during a storm. And those are used by everybody that goes up there to keep the sun off of us. That's our shelter. When it rains, we race in the rain. That's our shelter. When we sit up there and work on our cars, we can't just sit out there in the open like that. Those things have been there, and they need to stay there for us to be able to use the facility for what we're using it for.
So
You're saying you're going to take them out of there?
They have to stay so nobody else can use that facility for anything else? That's not right. I can't do that to the residents.
Oh, like we're really hurting the residents by having a racetrack there.
You're not, but you would if we say that's only a racetrack and nothing else.
With that said, Mr. Whedon, you made that comment, but at the same time, Mr. Spitznagel would like to apply for that grant, and he does have to put, he has a plan together,
Exactly.
and he has to submit that. I mean, you gotta have something.
Yeah, well, that's why I asked, was there flexibility? Is there flexibility in the grant in terms of, 'cause if there's a decision to use it, the funds for this or that, again, we're in the midst of, I know that the grant has a deadline, but the
Right.
village is also in the midst of asking our residents, what's important as it relates to recreation.
No, I agree.
Yeah, and I glanced at the survey. I don't know if it has pickleball, race car driving, I don't know what's all on there.
does.
But I think it's important that we hear from our residents as to what's important. I know there's a deadline for this application, I get that. But we're also asking our community, what's important? And that should be a factor in what council and administration decides as it relates to the use of property.
No, that's not what my point was. We still want him to apply, and just letting you know, if he's gonna apply for the grant, he has to submit something, so you're in agreement to submit nothing.
No, I'm in agreement with that. Yeah, I'm in agreement
Okay,
with
that's
you.
all, that was my
Yeah.
question. Wasn't dismissing the survey, not at all.
Yeah.
But does the grant award necessarily dictate the use of the areas is where I'm at.
Video and audio
Right,
might
I
be
thought,
unplugged.
and you
know what I mean?
necessarily don't have to accept the grant either,
Right, so.
or you could probably take out what,
Right, and Mr. Mayor, we're also not talking about destroying an area. We're talking about putting some paint lines down and buying some movable equipment. That's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about installing permanent equipment. The only person who's installed permanent equipment that you could even call it permanent is Mr. Harkeye. Because I was never included in any plan to put up a shelter with concrete blocks holding it down. I never authorized that use, and I don't know anybody else here that did. So, as far as I'm concerned, you did that at your own risk.
I don't think it was a risk, it was for our protection.
Okay, fine. We'll find a place for it. We can find another place for it. We can put it anywhere on the outer periphery of it. You
without-
can work on your cars.
I'll-
But yeah, it's enough of this. Let me look into this some more and get us some prices, and we'll see what we want to do. We've got that going, and
you have the survey.
We have the survey. Mr. Nielsen's been approached by several residents wanting this. He's the one that brought it to us. so-
If you are looking to get the most uses out of T.J. Young Park and have it to be a wonderful recreational facility that everyone enjoys, you got ball diamonds up there, you got playground equipment, okay? You got a racetrack in one place, you got batting cages in another place. I would say, why not leave those things the way they are and find another place to put pickleball courts or basketball courts? You got area up there that you could do that. Why not put a pickleball court in the place where the existing basketball court is right now? Without taking and hurting something that's already there, that's doing no harm to anybody, and it's good for people. Besides that, the little cars, that's a great hobby for kids. It's a family affair down there. And I'll tell you what, when we put a thing on the marquee sign out there, we had 2 new families come down there with their kids, and we let them all play with the cars. It's a great opportunity for for kids to get away from sitting there with the telephones, work on little cars, and have some family association. I can't see any reason why you want to hurt what's going on there, because it isn't hurting anybody for it to be there. I really don't see why you would want to do that. Find another place for the pickleball court. You're looking at me like that's impossible, but you're only doing that because that's what you want to do.
No, Mr.
Yeah,
Harkeye.
that's what's going on.
I don't want to debate. Well, how I'm looking at it is, first of all, nobody said, Denny, that you can't race cars down there. What's happening is an area, and you even said to me yourself, that we need to, not all the batting cages are used. The other areas need to be utilized more. You pushed for getting rid of that basketball court. We sectioned it off last year because you said it was unsafe.
It is unsafe.
Okay, so we sectioned it off even though we were utilizing it to some extent, okay? So, you know, it's not a matter of getting rid of you, it's a matter of maybe some other people joining you. That's how you have to look at it. We're adding other, the rec committee is trying to add other activities with you. And it's, Mr. Whedon even, he said it might come down, wouldn't it be great if we did have to come down to, okay, you guys use it from 1 to whatever on Sunday, and then instead of it being empty on Saturday, there's people down there using it. Or the thing, that's what we're all, that's the whole goal here. At least that's how I look at it. So, I don't think the intention is, at least on my part, and I'm sure not on anybody's part here, is to eliminate the 8 people that are using it, or whatever, or maybe even 10,
residents. There's
or
people
20.
come from all over the place to use
That's
that.
fine. Hope it, that'd be great if no one's saying to eliminate that. They're just saying to add some more recreation. I appreciate Mr. Spitznagel and the rec committee for what they're putting together, and I also appreciate what he's done over the years, putting grants together and stuff, and you know, so I think Mr. Whedon made a good point. I think maybe we're kind of, don't get ahead of it. It's probably going to turn out to be fantastic for everybody if it takes place, and that's the goal.
Well, I'm sure you all remember when Bill Allen sat here in the council meeting and said, I think that's a smashing idea to take that property that's being used for nothing else and clean it up and turn it into a racetrack. And he appropriated $5,000 toward that, which was money well invested. And then you know we got it paved and crack sealed and again, and then later on it needed to be repaved. And it was, I forget the figure right now, but I was told, hey, Denny, we love you, but the village doesn't have any money. And every one of you were here, I think. I said, okay, I'm in for $1,000. I put $1,000 of my own money into that pavement down there. Mr. Mason sat here and said, I'm in for $500. And then I got the Milstein family, friends of mine, and every single one of you donated money to that, $50, $100. You all remember that, I'm sure you do. So we all put our money into that, and the guys that are down there using that track, we take care of that place. We keep it clean. We repaint the boards every year. I can't see why you'd want to do anything to hurt what's going on down there. And if you take, right now, and you try to make a court down there with something and put markings on that pavement, that destroys the racetrack. Those markings are there to make barriers for the cars. That shows the oval track and the road course that are inside of there. And if you change all that with markings for a pickleball court, it'll screw up the whole thing for a racetrack. Now, if you got portable pickleball nets and there's something that are on wheels and somebody wants to play pickleball and nobody else is doing anything else down there, all right, roll them out there and let them play pickleball. I don't know if you need to mark, do you have to mark a pickleball court?
Sure.
Well, if you put markings all over that, you'll ruin the look of a racetrack. Well, you will.
Mr. Mayor, do we have to continue the conversation?
No, Mr. Harkite, if you got anything to say, you can wrap it up. Unless any other council members have a comment, they could say. Yes, any residents can make a comment. Right.
Jeff Alexander, Walton Road. I don't know what it takes to make the racetrack. Is there any way it could be put, as you pull in the Young Park, to the left parking lot down where the dumpster is? Could that be made into a racetrack area?
I don't know.
Is that possible? That's good, has surface asphalt, and that's an area that could possibly be moved there. I don't know what it takes
When you
to.
pull into the left, you talking about?
Yeah, as you pull in the long parking lot where the
Yeah.
big dumpsters at the end of the woods where the mulch is, maybe that could be utilized as a racetrack area.
Well, see.
I mean, I don't know what it takes to
Yeah.
make the racetrack, but.
Yeah, I don't.
Some of the issues we've had when we have the Parker programs, and that, the Parker program, and that's why some of that park gets sectioned off, just because over the years, they wanted to limit people coming into the park, outsiders when the kids are there.
Well, if that's
So they have
generally,
control, so
isn't that
by the barn there you're talking,
Monday
right?
through Fridays, Parker?
Yeah, that's Monday through
Well, if they
Friday.
still had their Sunday races,
It
there
doesn't.
would be no parkers
That's a
there.
different story, you are
Yeah,
correct.
and maybe that's a way to, something to look at. So,
Well, and besides that, those race cars have wheels about this big, and they're not real happy with dust and dirt on the track because they lose traction. So you go down there with blowers and clean that pavement off all the time so the cars work real nice. If you put it somewhere else where there's bumps and gravel and dirt and everything else, the whole thing will be spoiled. You can't run those little cars on a surface that's not smooth. That's the reason why we had it repaved. That's the reason why we take care of it. We were down there in the fall on our hands and knees, all of us, filling in all the little cracks in the pavement to make sure water doesn't damage that pavement. We're taking care of that place down there. I don't see anybody up there polishing playground equipment, I can tell you that.
I did install that playground equipment
Yeah, I know.
for free. Spent a lot of time up there with Mr. Knapp and other council members.
Well, how about if we try to find...
I've put a lot of time in this village, just like you, and I appreciate what you've done. But at the same time, it's up, we have to look at things too, and I think you need to look at things along with us with an open mind too, because hopefully it's gonna benefit everybody.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Harkey, he asked us to be on the Recreation Committee, okay? So we're on the Recreation Committee. We have people coming to us with different things, like you have your racetrack. I've had people come to me about pickleball. We've had people come to us about a basketball court. They want to have, the kids want to have a place to shoot some hoops. So now we're talking about our summer program. They want to have a place where the kids can maybe go down and play a little basketball. We even talked about putting a smaller hoop, portable hoop on one end of this, and so the smaller kids can play. But, we're trying to get along, trying to make it for everybody. I mean, we just have just a small area to work with. They're going to take that basketball court, the one that's up there, that's going to be completely taken out of there. They've already taken the hoops down. So, I mean, we're trying to make it work for everybody. It just can't be for one thing, so.
The basketball courts down there are different than, over the years, people have complained about the basketball court being on top, especially when the younger kids are on the swings. A lot of times with basketball courts, you get teenagers and you get, little older, even older adults playing basketball, and sometimes people feel uncomfortable with that. So it's not uncommon now as people redo outside facilities that they kind of separate them according to age, kind of keep people a little separate. If you have an area where kids are going with their parents, you kind of, you keep those areas so everybody feels comfortable. So in some ways, it's probably not a bad thing. There's still talk about turning it into a volleyball court. We had that one volleyball court that kind of didn't fit there, but I think everybody in this room agrees, and that's what we've been hearing, is that we need to do some things to make things better and get more use out of them and stuff, and so I think that's where we're at here. But let's see how it evolves.
I'm all for doing things, but let's try not to do things that hurt other things while we're doing things. Does that make sense?
I don't really know if we're going to hurt anything. That's just,
Well, I hope not. I really hope not.
Because that's not anybody's intention.
And where's the basketball court going to go? In that same place where you're going to put pickleball courts?
Sure, yeah.
So you're going to have movable pickleball nets and movable basketball net, and you're going to mark the thing for basketball courts with paint, and you're going to mark the pickleball courts with paint.
Yes.
And then how are we going to define where the racetrack is?
Well,
That don't matter to you?
This
Mr.
isn't
Mayor.
a conversation that I want to get into.
I guess not.
Mr. Mayor,
This and-
I coached football, and I'll tell you, I had a chance, my one son played lacrosse, and on the fields, on the same football field, they would mark a lacrosse field, and it worked fine. And different lines, totally different lines, and it worked just fine. So I think if kids can do it on a high school football field, I think we could do it up there. I think we could do it.
Did you ever try to drive a radio control race car?
No, I haven't.
Well, then you don't really know what you're talking about
No,
when I'm
I-
talking
I-
about this.
I haven't.
Mr. Harkeye, if you want to wrap it up, anybody else has any comments, or any residents? Any comments from council?
Not related to this, I had one more.
Okay, any
Nothing
comments
else
from
on that.
anybody live stream?
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question, though.
Yes.
How did Mr. Harkeye get a key to our facility?
I've had one since day one. You want it?
Yeah, I would. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to have somebody collect a key from a resident.
All right.
A resident just like our facility.
This is a personal thing, and you know it, and so do I, and so does everybody else in here.
Mr. Mayor, you want to stop him, please? Point of
Yeah,
order.
if you want to give the key back, and give the key back, not now, you can give it, turn it in whenever you want.
Mr. Mayor, this isn't anything other than we talked about the ordinance for the facility up there, the event center.
Yes.
We should not be giving keys to residents, non-residents, anybody to our facilities. Mr. Nielsen told me he couldn't get a key for a shed, and he worked on the baseball
I
diamonds.
finally got him to put the boxes behind the backstop, so at least we could have access to a rake and to field dry, and they wouldn't give me a key for the shed to get in and get the equipment, so.
So I would, in that vein, Mr. Mayor, I'm requesting to have that key back or change the locks so that key does not work.
Well, I certainly, hang on a minute, Danny, hang on. Mr. Spitzenagel, I think it would only be fair, I certainly, I understand where.
Well, not right now.
I understand what what you're saying about that, I mean, but I also do understand, I mean, I would work it out with Mr. Harkeye.
Sure.
And then you don't don't worry about your stuff going there, that's not.
No.
I've had the key for 8 years.
You don't even have to discuss the key anymore. Let's not even discuss the key. I don't need you to discuss the key with me. Okay, let me get to I'm looking for my agenda here.
We're in other business.
Hand me your agenda.
Oh, here, I'll get it.
We're still under other business.
Other business.
Oh, I found it. I had it
Yeah.
upside down. I was taking notes. Okay. Mr. Whedon, you have something else under other business?
Yes, Mayor Colgraf, members of council. Yeah, I have one more item that I helped, for the sake of time, during the finance committee. I didn't really talk about it because we were already running long. And that was about the work of the finance office. The work of the finance office. Angela Reve does a great job. She does the best she can with, we heard tonight, sometimes 4 different jobs. And, just the thought that, as this village continues to be more transparent, or we're always transparent, but more transparent with accuracy in our reporting, you and I have had some conversation around the assistance that's needed in the finance office. And my mind kind of goes back, and what I share with the mayor is, when I moved into the village, or before I moved into the village, there were, those reports that was talked about tonight from another resident were there. I was able to get a lot of information about what was going on in Walton Hills from the website. But also at that time, and you guys can correct me if I'm not right, there were at least 3 people. I'm talking about 2016, 2017. There was 3 people, at least 3 people in that finance department. I don't know what the exact titles were. I know I think there was a fiscal officer, an assistant fiscal officer, as well as a tax administrator or something like that. And, I know we, council, and at the mayor's request or Angela's request, however it worked last in our budget, we talked about authorizing some dollars for that assistance. And it's just a matter, I'm just curious where we are. Has it been identified? What are the exact skill sets that are needed? Is it on the tax administrator side? Is it on, I know Angela's not here, but the mayor's got to do the hire anyway. So if you don't want to answer now, we can do it next week.
I can.
So is it on the tax administrator side?
I'll let you finish, and then I'll tell you where we're at.
And because some of these reports that I asked for were very good reports back in 2017, and I think some of those were done by the tax administrator or assistant tax administrator at that time. And I just think we really have to take a good hard look at what are the skill sets needed for us to have that level of transparency, accuracy, and get the help that Angela needs in order that she's not trying to do 4 different jobs. And when we know the fiscal officer in itself is by state mandate or state law, which allows us to have a fiscal officer, already combines 2 positions, the treasurer and the clerk. Those, state says, okay, we can combine those 2 and do that by an appointment versus being an elected officers. So just a fiscal officer in itself is 2 positions, just that fiscal officer. So I'm just wanted to speaking into the record that I think we really have to take a good hard look, or you have to take a real hard look at identifying what those specific skill sets are and what that job position is, so that we can get the resources here in Walton Hills to help Angela with the workload that she's under.
Okay, Mr. Whedon, and I wish Angela was here because that was going to be part of our discussion here under other business, but she had to leave. With that said, I know me and you talked about it, and I said, well, me and Angela have been having these discussions because council, you guys did approve it in the budget for some help. And I expressed to her, because I know she needs the help. And she said, well, I want to get the right person, Mayor. And I said, well, that's important. We want to get the right person. And we want to, so her and Lori have been putting that together. But in the meantime, we have a plan, and that is we're going to utilize, because we're weaning Mary off, utilizing her up with recreation, because we're hoping to hire some people here for the summer camp. We're getting some applications in. We have a few that are good applications. And so she would like to utilize Mary. But by utilizing Mary in a lot of its data entry, which that's one of the, very strong suit, because you're into those programs. So we would use Mary, and we're looking where to place her, because she would be paid in 2 different categories: her job now and how she helps, depending on where she falls in, whether it falls in bookkeeper or one of the other categories. So that is something we were going to talk about tonight. So that is happening, and if we do have a COW meeting before the council meeting, we'll tell you where we're at with that and express that. And I think that part will really, with Mary helping her, seeing it's going to really help define what skill sets we need. That's the goal. The goal isn't to have Mary there. It's to say, is Mary, with her skill sets, enough? Or do we need to go into a fiscal officer assistant or more of a skill set? Just talking with Lori and our HR person and that's what we don't know, because we've watched it, budget-wise. We went from having a fiscal officer and having a tax administrator and eliminating that position. At one time, we had 3 people in the office. We had Vic, Katie, and Angela,
Correct.
okay?
Mr. Mayor, didn't we have somebody part-time too?
Yeah.
Like seasonally?
Yeah, Brad helped out a little bit there. So, and this was the suggestion of Angela in her, me working with her and seeing where she's at. So I was hoping that she's kind of got it down, roll it out a little more. I knew you were gonna ask that, we talked about that, and I did share with you that we're working on it, so, unfortunately, she's not here right now, and but that's gonna happen. So I'll probably have a COW meeting, might as well say it right now, we'll have a COW meeting, because that will be a better place actually for Mike Gervaisi to address the cameras, and stuff too, so we'll just plan on a COW meeting before that. So that's.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I'm happy to hear that. Again,
It's in the budget, why wouldn't we? I keep telling
exactly, and I,
we budgeted for it, the money's there.
Right.
And you need that help, so.
And I respect, finding the right person, but finding the right person is secondary to the skill set. What is the actual need? And then we'll talk about it more.
Well, that's what we have to address.
What's the actual need in order to get the reports? And if we're talking about new reports and potentially, new business expanding, what is the analysis of the actual need in the finance office before? Then you look at what is the right.
Well, that's what I'm
person.
saying.
Okay.
And a lot of that it will help determine when having Mary or using some of the other office staff, whether it's Lisa. Nancy, we kind of keep Nancy with the court.
Right.
Lisa's pretty much tied up. There's another position. Rob asked me when I became mayor, he says, I need some help in the building department, and you guys are aware of this because we made you aware of it. Lisa goes down to the building department during the week and helps out with a lot of clerical stuff, putting letters together that we send out to the residents or the businesses, notifications, violations, which gives Rob a chance to be out on the road. There's no doubt Angela's not the only one wearing many hats. Every employee here has. Unfortunately, I'd love to hire more people. But we just can't afford it at this time. But Angela needs that help, and we budgeted for it, and so we'll have a very good, tell you where we're at, and Mary's going to start working with her soon here.
I'm going to also get more involved with the legislation, to help her free up some of that time too, because she was helping me prepare legislation. So I have my office staff get more involved, so that'll help relieve her somewhat.
But that was common. Not that John's office. In fact, his office has been doing more of the legislation than we have in the past. It was usually done. We're just trying to spread it out. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other question? Anything for other business?
I have one more thing that's very important.
I'll allow you to speak. We're not going to get in any debate or anything, Denny. You know how I feel about letting people speak. I always do.
Mr. Spitznagel?
If you're going to address and be nasty, this isn't a courtroom.
That's not my spirit right now. You and I have had our differences in the past, as you well know. I remember distinctly one day when the phone rang and it was Brian Spitznagel saying, "Hey, Denny, why don't you come over to my house and sit down in the backyard and we'll talk and make peace with each other." Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And guess what? Didn't I show up maybe 10 minutes later?
I don't know.
Maybe 15 at the most? And didn't we sit down and make peace with each other, and were things quite okay for a little while? I think they were.
Mr.
Now, listen, let
All right,
me finish, I'm talking, let me finish. Don't
If
interrupt.
it's not related to business
Well, this
or
is-
whatever,
this
if
is
you
not
got, no, you, this is not,
Yeah.
if you got something, you could call me, he's your councilman, you can call him and talk to
I
him.
need to finish this.
I'll let you finish, but go ahead.
After the last time when we had an outburst here in these chambers, the very next morning, I sent you an email and I said, and you saw copies of this, I said, Mr. Spitzmail, how about if me and you sit down and make peace? Call me anytime. The peace party is way better than a hatchet. And I even made a joke. I said, maybe we could even exchange Valentine's cards this year. And guess what? That was so many days ago. You never responded to me. And my question was, why not? Because I'll tell you what, if you want to sit down right now, me and you, man to man, and talk about making peace with each other, here's me. I'll sit here till midnight with you if you want to do it. Are you interested?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
My presentation was based on recreational events for the village, doing what we could with what we had, and that's it. I was also the recipient of emails using my initials, my name derogatorily several times. I was also the recipient of an email a day and a half after the email that you just sent that you didn't say anything about, calling me all kinds of things again, but that's personal. This has nothing to do with, I already told you, I don't care if you race your cars there. It doesn't bother me. Go do it. My presentation and what we are trying to do is increase the recreational opportunities for our entire village, period.
And I would
Mr. Mayor, I'm done talking.
And I would plead with you not to do something at the expense of something else that's already working just fine as it is. And I'm gonna ask you again, you wanna sit down and talk to me, man to man, right now, somewhere?
Make your point. We're not gonna go back and forth with, Brian already said
Does
it.
that interest you?
I have a point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Denny, we're done. You already made your point. You said it enough. I've allowed things, if you got something related to the agenda items, be more glad, that'd be fine. We're not gonna sit here. It's not fair to council or everybody else. You two can. Any other questions from any residents?
Nothing on that.
Nothing on the thing? Can I ask for adjournment?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask for adjournment of the COW meeting for March 8th, 2022.
Is
Second.
there a second? Vote on the motion.
Oh, we're used to answering.
Jennifer Allen,
Yes.
Mary Brenner Miller,
Yes.
Fred Nielsen,
Yes.
Raymond Whedon,
Yes.
Brian Spitznagle.
Yes.
Okay, 5 yeses. Adjourned meeting at, what time did we have here?
On the yeah, just where it says end stream.
Yeah, I think so.
Although I think we need to wait just a moment so it catches up to us voting.
Something happened there.
There we go. Okay, so this is where you just walked over. So
You might get a little flash in the March, you know how we always.
I remember St. Patrick's Day one time we were up there at the beach.
Yeah.
How are you?